Sometimes you can lose everything and still not understand why you're still breathing. My name is Laura Hayes. I am 36 years old, born and raised in a small coastal town in Ireland, and this is the story of how my life fell apart and how Allah rebuilt it from dust. I grew up in a place where everyone knew everyone, where the same neighbors watched you grow from childhood mischief into awkward teenage years, and where the sea felt like a second parent. My childhood was simple, warm, and full of the kind of innocence you don't realize is precious until it's gone. My mother was gentle, the kind of woman who spoke softly even when she was angry. My father worked long hours, came home tired, but he made sure I never doubted his love. Boys, school, music, beaches, laughter. Those were my early years, and for a while it felt like that small town predictability was enough. But there was always a restlessness beneath my skin, like my heart was looking for something I couldn't name, something bigger, something real. That longing followed me into adulthood, and instead of guiding me, it unsettled me. It made me grab onto anything that felt like escape. Look, this is the part people don't like to talk about. The part where you try to fill your emptiness with whatever numbs you fastest. For me, it was alcohol first. It started harmlessly enough. Nights out, drinks with friends, laughing too loudly, staying out too late. And for a while it felt fine, it felt exciting even. But alcohol is strange. It doesn't ask permission to take over your life. It just whispers to you until you can't tell the difference between your own thoughts and its demands. Then the whispers become cravings, and the cravings become shackles. I fell into drugs because they made it easier not to feel. Cocaine at first, then pills to sleep, then more alcohol to balance out the pills. I was a mess of chemicals pretending to be a person. I pushed away family, ruined relationships, lied to people who trusted me, and lied even harder to myself. I worked just enough to survive, but my life was wrecked long before I ever admitted it. I remember waking up one morning on a floor I didn't recognize. Clothes from the night before, a phone with missed calls, a headache that felt like punishment. And for the first time in my life, I felt scared of myself. To be honest, that fear stayed with me for years. I would promise myself that I would stop, that I would get help, that I would take control. But addiction laughs at promises. Addiction convinces you that tomorrow will be the day you change, even as you destroy yourself today. And I was destroying myself. My health declined, my friendships faded, my sense of self vanished. I couldn't look in the mirror without feeling shame, and I couldn't sleep without substances dragging me into a fake kind of peace. There were nights I genuinely didn't care if I woke up. This is where everything changed for me. The moment I realized the life I had built was nothing but rubble. And in that rubble, I couldn't find myself anymore. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No flashing lights, no near-death experience, just a quiet desperation. One evening, I stumbled into my bathroom, stared at my reflection, and didn't recognize the woman looking back. My eyes were hollow, my skin was tired, my soul absent. And I remember thinking, if I don't change now, I won't live long enough to regret it. That thought shook me. It wasn't fear of death. It was fear of dying as someone I didn't want to be. I checked myself into a detox program. It was humbling and humiliating. You sit in a room with strangers and talk about the things you've done, the cravings that rule you, the pain you pretend not to feel. And somewhere in that vulnerability, something inside me cracked open. There was a counselor in the centre who once told me, "Nothing will change until you learn to sit with yourself sober." At the time, I hated those words, but they followed me everywhere. So when I finished the program, I tried to rebuild my life piece by fragile piece. I stayed away from old friends. I stayed away from bars. I stayed away from anything that reminded me of the woman I used to be. But sobriety brought a new emptiness. A clear mind is a blessing, but it also exposes everything you tried to hide. I felt lost again, except now I couldn't numb it. That's when I started searching. I don't know how to explain it except to say my heart was begging for direction. I listened to podcasts, I watched videos, I read about spirituality, philosophy, mindfulness. I tried meditation, I tried grounding exercises, I tried everything. But nothing settled the ache inside me. Nothing answered the question I'd been carrying since childhood. Why am I alive? And then Islam appeared in my life in the quietest, simplest way. I didn't know any Muslims personally. Islam felt distant, something I never really thought about beyond headlines and stereotypes. But one day, I came across a video of a woman talking about how Islam saved her from addiction. Something in her honesty, her calm, her conviction, it reached me. I watched another video, then another, and then I started reading about Islam, not for conversion, but out of curiosity. I wanted to understand why these people spoke about God with such clarity and peace. The more I learned, the more it felt like someone was finally speaking the language my heart understood. The concept of one God, the purpose of life, accountability, mercy, guidance, structure, protection. It felt true. Not forced, not emotional manipulation, just truth. I remember reading the Quran for the first time, not the whole book, just a few verses, but the words hit me like they were written specifically for the girl who had ruined her life and didn't know how to start again. Look, I cried that night in a way I hadn't cried in years. Not from sadness, from recognition, from finding something I didn't know I was searching for. Weeks later, in my small apartment, sitting cross-legged on the floor, I whispered the Shahadah. No ceremony, no witnesses, just me and Allah. My voice was shaking. My heart was pounding. But the moment the words left my tongue, I felt a stillness wash over me. It felt like someone gently placing a hand on my chest and saying, "You're home now." I fell into sujud without even understanding how to pray properly. I just put my forehead to the ground and cried. And for the first time in my 36 years, I felt alive. Reversion didn't erase my past, but it transformed my future. The cravings didn't magically disappear, but Allah gave me strength I never had before. When a wave of temptation hit, I would make wudu, sit on my prayer mat, and whisper, "Ya Allah, help me," and somehow, the craving passed. My days became structured around prayer. Fajr softened me. Dhuhr grounded me. Asr steadied me. Maghrib humbled me. Isha held me. 5 moments every day where I checked in with my soul instead of running from it. I started eating better, sleeping better, thinking better. I gave up clubs, old friends, old habits, old environments. I learned to say no. I learned to protect my peace, and bit by bit, Allah rebuilt me. Not into my old self, but into someone I didn't even know I could be. I found Muslim sisters who treated me like family. I found meaning in charity, in learning, in quiet moments of reflection. I started healing relationships with my own family, not through force, but through consistent, calm change. There were challenges, of course. Islamophobic comments, doubts, loneliness, identity struggles. But even with all of that, I never felt abandoned. Not once. Islam didn't just take me out of addiction. It gave me something better to be addicted to. The peace of being close to God. If you're listening to this and you feel broken, listen closely. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond repair. You are not defined by your mistakes. Ask yourself why you believe your past is stronger than the mercy of the one who created you. Look, healing takes time. Sobriety takes strength. Faith takes courage. But you don't need to be perfect to start. You just need to begin. When you feel lost, ask Allah for guidance. When you feel ashamed, ask Allah for forgiveness. When you feel weak, ask Allah for strength. And keep asking, even when your voice shakes, especially when your voice shakes. You will rebuild, you will rise, and you will one day thank yourself for not giving up when life was darkest. And if Allah can take a woman like me, a woman who wrecked her own life, who drowned herself in substances, who couldn't recognize her own reflection, and guide her to peace, then He can guide anyone. All you have to do is knock on the door, Allah will open it.